Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of the Exalted, the Forgiver, and the Just. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for choosing another edition of the program of Prophetic Education as mirrored in the Noble Quran to watch. I'm Fatima Shamali, your host, inshallah, today, along with Dr. Abbas Ali Shamali. We will present to you a discussion that we hope you will enjoy listening to. Dr. Shamali, salamu alaikum, and thanks for joining us again.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And also, salam to all watchers and viewers of this program. As your father and the expert of this program, at your service.
Thank you. Dear viewers, if you recall and if you were following our previous programs, you will know that we were covering the two dimensions of prophetic education in the Noble Quran. One was the stages of prophetic education, and the second one was the characteristics. We comprehensively covered both of those topics, which are the understanding of Dr. Shamali from the text of the Noble Quran with regards to this specific topic. We mentioned that the stages of prophetic education are divided into three parts based on the verse يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, which is based on verse number 2 of chapter 62 Al-Jumu'ah. And also we talked about the characteristics of the teachings of the Prophet in the Noble Quran, which is, first of all, it's innate-centered, second of all, it's reciprocal, and third of all, it's trainee-centered. Dr. Shamali, I believe that today we are going to take one step further and we are going to move on to the goals of prophetic education. Okay, we talked about the stages and the characteristics. So why? Why should we have prophetic education in the first place?
Okay. When we review the Holy Quran, we come up to know that prophets have been sent to humanity, to human beings, in order to target two main aims, to arrive at two major targets. And they are establishment of social justice at socio-political level, and also self-development or training, educating people one by one. Although the targets of prophets in their educational efforts are groups, nations, and masses, but the real addressee of prophets are single citizens, each and every person. So each and every of us are the concerns of the prophets. Prophets came to us to enable us, to help us to be able to establish a qualified personality,
right?
A qualified citizen, a qualified person. When I say qualified, I mean religiously, morally, and mystically enable us to be able to move toward perfection. So if I want to put all I told you in terms of the aim and the targets of prophets, I could say educationally. You could, approach prophetic mission from different angles and through different approaches. But for myself, as a psychologist and educationalist, when I say prophetic mission, my concern is educational. So the title of the discussion of this edition will be Prophetic Educational Planning. Prophetic Educational Planning, an avenue from self-development into social justice, a Quranic approach. You could have psychological, sociological, political approaches.
Right.
Myself is Quranic approaches. A more general and inclusive perspective in studying Prophet Muhammad's tradition. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So when you want to study Prophet Muhammad's tradition through a more general and inclusive approach, this would be one way. I have just tried to explain and elaborate on this topic based on explanations of Ayatollah Shaheed Sayyid Muhammad Baqir As-Sadr, Ridwanullahi Ta'ala alayhi. He has provided a very nice volume, Al-Madrasatul Qur'aniyah, the School of Quranic Teachings, or the School for Quranic Teachings. And in that, he has tried to provide a new understanding about sociological perspectives of the Holy Quran. You may know that Shaheed Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, Allama Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, has tried to provide new understanding from the Holy Quran. And indeed, a modern or postmodern thinker in Shi'i Islam. He has developed falsafatuna, our philosophy, comparing Islamic philosophy with Western philosophy. Again, he came up with a second volume called Iqtisaduna, our economy, comparing Western and Eastern economy with Islamic economical system to show the commonalities and the differences.
Right.
And lately and lastly, unfortunately, he was put to death, executed by Saddam Hussein along with his sister, Aisha bint al-Huda. And this was the last 14 sessions of his Quran interpretation. And he had in mind to provide a new edition, along with Iqtisaduna, Falsafatuna, and the third one, Mujtama'una.
Our society?
Our society according to what we could understand from the Holy Quran. And he tried to provide new explanation about the divine tradition, Sunanullah Ta'ala, the traditions of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in managing human life, particularly social life, socio-political life. Fortunately, some of the scholars in Qom tried to elaborate on this volume, which was just records, 14 records of 14 sessions of Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr. At the beginning, they put it in the volume Al-Madrasatul Qur'aniyah, and recently I realized that Sayyid Mundir Hakim tried to put all these Al-Madrasatul Qur'aniyah in the form of Mujtama'una. So my talk in this session and two more is an explanation for a part of this Mujtama'una, our society as mirrored in the Holy Quran. Okay. So Shaheed Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr was born on 1935 and was put in martyrdom on 1980. So it's not a long life. 35 to 80. It comes 45. But during these 4 decades, he has provided a lot in Quran interpretation and philosophy and economy, modern thoughts of Islamic value. My research method to understand Sadr's theory in terms of his explanation about social rules and rulings was a philosophical inquiry and qualitative research approach. I have tried to focus on Quran themes through thematic approach, which is offered by Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr. Before to begin his sociological approach, he has provided a good explanation of thematic approach. He said you could just study Quran, consult with Quran, whether through orderly recitation, at-tafsir tartibi, you start with Surah Al-Hamd and you go to chapter An-Nas. And you could approach Quran through thematic approach. So one is conventional, which is traditional. You start from the beginning and you go to the end.
Right.
Okay. And the second one, which is elaborated by several thinkers in Shi'i Islam, for example, Ayatollah Shahid Mutahari, Ayatollah Shahid Allama Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, and Allama Misbah Yazdi. They have tried to provide a new approach to understand Quran called thematic approach. And my main concern was content analysis. I have consulted different verses from different chapters and tried to
reach an understanding.
Understand the content. So the main approach of mine is content analysis. So what is my goal for this topic? Exploring Sadrian theory. I mean, Shaykh Muhammad Baqir. Sadrian perspective in explaining human social condition and human inner structure. And indeed, this is my findings in my PhD dissertation at McGill University. Okay, to combine social condition with human inner structure. In anthropology and in sociology, they have a new term. They call it human condition. You could study societies, you could study nations, you could study groups, and come up to know the conditions, the circumstances of a society, basically in terms of cultural, intellectual, and religiously.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you here because we're going to go for a short break and then we're going to be right back. Stay tuned. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome back. This is the second part of our discussion on the topic of prophetic education as mirrored in the Noble Quran. Today we are going to start, inshallah, a 3-session discussion on the topic of the goals of prophetic education. And we were listening to Dr. Shamali explain to us that this goals of prophetic education, according to Shahid Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, is his understanding during the 4 years of study of his PhD course in McGill University, Canada, and I believe this is what you wrote your dissertation on. So you gave us some introduction about the differences between conventional Quranic interpretation, which is going from the first chapter of the Noble Quran until the very end, and then the second one, which is a more new one, a novel one, is that of Shahid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, and for example, Shahid Mutahari, that they have thematical interpretation of the Noble Quran. So if there's nothing else left, we can move on to the main discussion, the goals of prophetic education.
Just adding one more point, my main concern to this study, was highlighting the possible presumed link between self-development and social justice. Of course, educational concern, because You could just approach this one politically, socially, anthropological, different approaches. My approach is educational, to come up with what could we do as educationalists to help enable people to participate their proper role at the socio-political level.
And that's I think it's a very outstanding example because, for example, in history, if we look, people like Hitler, Saddam Hussein, or Muammar Gaddafi, or, for example, Imam Khomeini, these were all people that were individuals, but they made great changes. And then on the other hand, we have, for example, the example of the revolution of Iran, that the people of Iran, they kicked out the Shah of Iran out of the country, and they established an Islamic republic.
Yeah, you are talking from another dimension, about another aspect, which I call it educational leadership. One particular person is able to create a change, create a difference.
Right.
So any happening, any event at macro social level goes back to
the individual
efforts of one or a group of individuals. This is one aspect that I call it educational leadership. The other one is explanation about the socio-political events through this way, that any macro-social event is due to micro-individual training. So prophets, when they came to humanity, they didn't begin at macro-social level.
Yeah,
they immediately went to talk to each and every person of the society. So this is the meaning of the point that I raised, that the real addressee of prophets are single people, are just each and every person of the society. According to Shaheed Allameh Sayyid Muhammad Baqir Sadr, if you are going, just I'm emphasizing, if you are going to understand the core and the real meaning of prophetic education and the target of prophets in their educational efforts, you need to know more about two lines, two parallel lines. It's very beautiful, very interesting. Allameh Sadr assumes that we human beings came to this planet for a mission. We didn't come by chance.
Right.
We came for a mission, for a divine mission, which goes back to the philosophy of human creation. Okay, that mission cannot be conducted unless a group of observers, educators, and leaders help human beings.
Prophets here.
And here, that group is prophets. So Allameh Sadr says, to understand human mission on this planet, you need to know two lines. Number one, Khilafatul Insan, the vicegerency of human beings. Number two, the observation of prophets. I don't know, am I using a correct terminology here or no? This is my terminology. I called it prophetic observation. Why? Because Shaheed Sadr uses Khilafatul Insan wa Shahadatul Anbiya. Shahada here does not mean martyrdom.
Yeah.
Means
to witness
observant,
something.
to witness. Shaheed Sadr says, if you are going to understand educational mission of prophets, you need to understand two lines.
Right.
The line of Khilafatul Insan, the line of Shahadatul Anbiya. They come complementary to enable people to conduct their real role, which is presumed for them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So going to Khilafatul Insan, does this have to do with Allah saying, I put, with saying that human beings are Khalifatullah?
This is new understanding of the Holy Quran. When you are going to approach educationally different verses, you go to chapter Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse number 30. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in this way. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون.
MashaAllah.
So beautiful. إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. We came to this planet to represent
Allah
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, when does prophetic education come to the scene? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human being. And before creating human beings was addressing angels. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. Remember the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the angels. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I am going to put a vicegerent, representative on the earth. To be my deputy, to be my vicegerent. قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها. Immediately, angels were shocked and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you going to put someone who is going to corrupt, to make corruptions and shed blood? وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We are praising you. We are providing all types of worship, all forms of worships, in words and in action. So what do you look for? What more are you looking for? We are doing what you want. What is the philosophy behind creating human being? قال إني أعلم
ما لا تعلم.
You are just looking at one side of the token, always. Okay, this human being with these types of formation and, soul and body could create corruptions, shed bloods and things like that. So nothing more than crisis, bloods and things. So we are doing the best. If you're looking for praising and worshiping, we are doing that. قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. Among these humanity, they will appear some people who are my Khalifa, who will be godlike, who will be perfect human beings, who will be even further and beyond of you, of your position. Why? To understand human mission on this planet, we need to link another verse from the Holy Quran, chapter Al-Ahzab, verse number 72. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a complementary aspect of human mission. Look, so beautiful, but in a very symbolic way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. Another interpretation of human
The duty
mission.
of human beings.
Human mission. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning addressed angels. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ Khalifa. I'm going to put on this earth a vicegerent, someone who will be my deputy, who will act, who is able to act and to act upon exactly what I do as your Lord. The same power, the same quality, the same qualification. Again in chapter Al-Ahzab, addresses human being and say, إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ. We have provided our trust. It was a trust, amana. We have provided it to the heavens. They couldn't bear. To the earth, nothing. To the mountains, they are the
Strongest.
symbols of strength,
Right.
of power. They couldn't endure. They could not tolerate. They could not accept, receive this divine trust. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. They were afraid. أَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا. Those powerful beings, they were not able to receive that trust.
But man who was less, he accepted.
But man who was the lowest in terms of power.
Yeah.
وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you here because our time is up. But inshallah, next time, in our next program, I would like to ask you about the last part of this verse, that إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. What exactly does this mean? Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed listening to our discussion today on the goals of prophetic education in the Noble Quran. Until next time, may the peace and blessings of Allah shower upon you all.